Hi there, I'm Will Hammond, for those of you that don't know me, and welcome to Macheo's Children's Home here in Thika, Kenya. Macheo, the charity I'm working for on behalf of the Kipawa Trust, literally means sunrise in Swahili. And while I've been here, I've first of all been looking at some of the data they produce to measure the impact of the services that they provide. And then more recently, since the lockdown with Corona, I've become a kind of surrogate sports teacher for the kids here in the home, which has been a whole lot of fun. So what am I doing this video for? Well, first of all, I wanted in these pretty tough times to share some really positive news about human development and also about the work that Macheo do. Second of all, I wanted to share with you some of the challenges that the communities here are facing. And thirdly, I wanted to give you the opportunity to support and join in with the cause if it's something that interests you or motivates you. So let's start with the positives. And I've been reading this book called Factfulness by Hans Rosling. And he basically uses publicly available information to show that despite what we're all kind of told and led to believe, the world is actually becoming a much better place to live for the vast majority of people. So I wonder whether you knew, for example, that in the last 20 years, the number of people living in extreme poverty has over halved, or that of the 1-year-olds living today, over 80% of them have been vaccinated against some sort of disease. And from what I've seen with Macheo, they really are contributing to that kind of wider picture of human progress. And I want to tell you a story about Rose. She's a lady living in Kiandutu, which is a slum, about 30 minutes drive from Nairobi. And Kiandutu is about as far removed from Grange Road near the Backs in Cambridge, where I grew up, as is physically imaginable. It's a place of real hardship, of real poverty. When Macheo found Rose, she was 15, she was pregnant without any real say in that matter. She was out of school and she was at risk of continued exploitation and abuse. She certainly didn't have the support network or the resources available to her to bring up a happy and healthy child. And then when I encountered Rose, she was styling a client's hair in her own salon in the slum, proud of her business and with a healthy, smiling boy running around her ankles. You can see them in this picture here. She had somehow managed to break that cycle of poverty and continued exploitation. It was quite an amazing thing to see. And what led to that change? Well, Macheo taught her about parenting skills and child development, but then gave her some training in how to run a business and also in hair care, which was one of her passions. And then they gave her a small amount of seed capital to get the business up and running. It just shows what can be done by working closely with communities, understanding the kind of root causes of issues, and then working with people and with their strength to create lasting change. And all that costs less than like 50 quid. That's how much an intervention like that costs, and that includes all of the charities overheads. And that isn't an isolated case. So one of the things that's really struck me since I've been here with Macheo is the sheer breadth of what they do. They are essentially the social care system for the children in Thika. Last year then they did nearly 5,000 needs assessments and followed that up with over 10,000 different interventions. There's more details on all the different programs that they run in the email. Essentially, they do whatever is necessary to empower families and parents to give their children an opportunity to thrive. I saw firsthand the other day how that works. So I was with a social worker and we came across a mother and her 4 children. At the time they hadn't eaten in days and there was kind of no prospect of a meal anytime soon. Her children weren't in school and one especially was particularly traumatized, the eldest child. What had happened is that they'd been forced to leave their old community after the husband and the grandmother both died, and they'd fled to a new place and they were scraping by, but then the mother injured herself badly at work, so she could no longer afford to feed the kids and she couldn't afford the healthcare to get back on her feet. So the social worker ensured that she had some emergency provisions for her children, and there's a photo of us getting them there, just kind of stave off starvation. And then she referred them to some of those critical services I mentioned, like the healthcare service, the school access service and school feeding programs, so that the kids get an education and some food on an ongoing basis. And really critically, she referred them to Macheo's counselling services for the trauma that they've clearly all been through. So it's another great story, and it should make us feel really happy. But at the same time, it really highlighted some of the challenges here, for me anyway. So first of all, it just showed the complexity of the challenges that people face. This was a loving, resilient, caring mother doing everything she could for her children, but just because of one situation after the next, she found herself in crisis with no one to turn to. And then second is the importance of Macheo to the communities here and vulnerable people within them. As I mentioned before, there is no state service to support these people. Macheo is the safety net, and I genuinely dread to think what would have happened to that family and her kids had Macheo not been there. And then thirdly, that while Macheo's staff work so hard every day to prioritise those families in most need and the interventions that make most impact, that there simply isn't enough money or resources to meet all the needs of the children here in Tika, despite those needs being things that you or I would consider urgent, critical and potentially incredibly damaging to that child's well-being and future. So whilst they were able to get them an emergency food package, there had to be a long conversation about where they were going to get that money from, and they had to take it from another intervention to support that family in that immediate moment of crisis. It was the right thing to do, but that means that another family won't be getting the support that they desperately need. And there are lots of interventions here with waiting lists, like the financial sustainability program with Rose that I told you about earlier. Last period there were over 30 people on a waiting list who couldn't be helped because of a lack of funding. So it's clear to me that, as Hans Rosling in Factfulness also says, things can be better, which they are, and also still bad. The world is progressing, and Macheo are really contributing to that, but you don't need me to tell you that there's still so much more we can do to improve things. So here's the big ask. Share. Share the news about human development. Share the news about the great work that Macheo is doing. Go online, go on social media, forward this email, whatever you can do to get the story out there. And beyond that, I don't really want you to do anything that you weren't already thinking of doing. I don't want you to donate because you know me or because you feel a sudden feeling of guilt. And certainly don't donate money that is needed for other things in this really difficult time. But if you were looking for a way to contribute to the reality of human progress, what I'd ask is this. Please consider using Macheo as your vehicle for doing so. I can promise you personally that every pound they get transforms lives, because I've seen it. I've seen it on the ground and I've seen it in the data. And they're so lean that the money goes such a long way. So if you want to help, whether that's just through sharing or through donating, have a look at the email. There's more details there on how you can do it. Or just get in touch, and I'm happy to share as much information as I've got. And keep a lookout for some further posts on Macheo's response to Corona and also some of the specific programs that they run. I'll be doing those in the next couple of weeks. So thank you so much for watching. And from here in Kenya, Asante sana, Kwaheri.